So, hi everyone, a very good evening to all of you. I am Aruna Joshi and I'm an author and editor in chief with Embassy Books. On behalf of Embassy Books and Ishi, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to this mega launch of this amazing book. Everything changed after that. 25 women, 25 stories by 25 gifted women authors and edited by none other than Ekta Kapoor. As most of you present here would know, this book is an anthology of the winning stories, short stories, from a short story writing contest held by Ishi in collaboration with Embassy Books. We received an overwhelming response with around 216 entries. This contest was judged by the best-selling fiction author Preeti Shenoy, Ekta Kapoor, who's the founder and editor of Ishi, and myself. So we had a very tough time selecting the winning stories because all the stories were above par. But then competition is competition. So, so we had to select 25 stories which would make way into this amazing book. So to unveil this book, we have our chief guest, Ms. Apurva Purohit, who has kindly agreed to grace the occasion, taking time out of her busy schedule. Thank you, Apurva, for being there. Apurva Purohit is the president of Jagran Group, one of India's largest multimedia conglomerates. With over 3 decades of experience in media and entertainment industry, she leads digital, print, radio, and outdoor in this group. Under Apurva's leadership, Radio City has consistently been ranked fifth in India and sixth in Asia in the Great Places to Work survey. Radio City has been also recognized as one of the best places to work for women in 2019. Isn't that great? A list curated by Outlook Business Magazine. Apurva is a leading voice advocating gender diversity in the Indian business landscape and has authored a national bestseller for working women titled Lady, You're Not a Man. In a recently launched book titled Lady, You're the Boss, Apurva aims to empower women and encourage them to achieve their full potential. Drawing from her personal experiences, she talks about how women minimize themselves, suffer from imposter syndrome, and settle for less than they are capable of because of the external prejudices as well as misguided internal self beliefs. Though through anecdotes and examples, the book suggests ways of overcoming these issues and clear the path towards personal and professional success. Over the years, Apurva has won multiple business awards and has been named as one of the most powerful women in business as per the India Today group and Fortune India. She was amongst LinkedIn's top voices and Your Story's top 10 digital influencers of 2020. On a personal note, I became a huge fan of Apurva after watching her videos on YouTube. And what impressed me beyond words is her simplicity and humility. And it's our honor to have you here, ma'am. I would now like to introduce the man behind the book by 25 women, Sohin Lakhani. Sohin is the founder and publisher at Embassy Books, founded in 1992. The tagline of Embassy Books is life-changing books. Our focus at Embassy Books is to have a selection of high-quality titles, giving individual attention to each title in terms of production, distribution, promotion, and sales. Several of our books have earned the title of bestsellers and won international accolades. The titles in our motivational and inspirational category have been widely procured by leading corporate houses to be distributed as corporate gifts. We publish around 100 titles a year, although we choose to focus more on quality than quantity. Embassy Books is Sohin's brainchild. Sohin is an avid reader himself, and publishing is more of a passion for him than business. When I took this idea of the contest and the book to him, he happily gave his consent and was equally excited about the idea as all of us. And you can see the result right here today. Another very important person behind the book is my dear friend and one of the most wonderful souls I've ever met, Ekta Kapoor. Ekta is the founder and editor of Ishi magazine, as you all know, and the author of the spiritual memoir 100 Paths. After a long career and an award winning lifestyle and fashion journalist, heading prestigious publications and websites, Ekta now focuses on gender equality, social justice, and peace building through her writing and mentorship. She was a mentor for the DO Schools Industry Disruptor 2020 by We Empower Asia UN Women in India and Europe, and for the Niti Yog UN Investor Consortium for Women Entrepreneurs 2020. Last but not the least, we have our 25 winning authors with us. They are all gifted writers and wonderful souls who have come up with such marvelous, life changing stories that will certainly change your perspective towards life. As we move ahead through the program, we'll be introducing each one of them. Uh, Ekta will do the honors. So, without further ado, I would like to request Apurva, Soin, Ekta, and all our authors to open the book and we can have the pictures taken. You can unmute yourself if you want, and please keep the videos on. Embassy Books is really proud to publish Everything Changed after that. We wish that everything changes after the launch of this book for all of us in a positive way. The exciting news is that on the fourth day after the book was listed on Amazon, it was at number 34 in short stories and at number 2090 as overall ranking, which is a great achievement. So thank you everyone. Now I'd like to request Apurva to say a few words and motivate us, all us writers.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ekta. Thank you all of you for inviting me. And it is such a pleasure to meet such talented, confident, lovely women. And I think it energizes all of us when we spend time with each other. So, from 1750 BC, when Hammurabi wrote his first code, and that is the code that we still follow in some form or manner in our, the moral way we behave, in the social way we behave, in the civil way we behave. And in that code, he had talked about murder. He had said that if a man murders another man, he is punishable by death. If a man kills another man's cattle, he has to give him 4 minas of gold. But if a man kills another man's wife, he has to give 2 pieces of silver. So the price of a woman in 1750 BC was 1/8 that of the cattle. Of course, in the 4,000 years that have passed since, things have changed. Things have obviously improved dramatically, manifold, till a point has come today that in 2021, we are equal. But are we? Are we truly equal, or are we almost equal? And I think in the best of societies, in the most developed of nations, in the most equitable of environments that many of us have grown in, we do believe that, yes, there are still those few inches to cross till all of us can turn around and say, yes, women do hold up 50% of the sky. Because the sad reality is that we still don't hold up that much of an equal part of the sky. And I think it's visible in the kind of gender pay gaps that we see, in the kind of violence that is done at various forums, whether it is the thappad behind closed doors in fancy localities, as it is about the stories that we hear every day coming out of places like Unnao, etc. Apart from this very visible inequality, I also believe that at a very covert level, there is a fair amount of cutting down to size that is always being done with women at all levels. So this bonsaiing of women that happens, this bonsaiing that society does in a very covert, sub textual manner, where women are told that you can't do this, you can't become a fighter pilot, you're not good at maths, you're a woman, you cannot drive, you can't do heavy lifting, how can you work in a manufacturing environment, how can you wear red lipstick, how can you wear short clothes, how can you talk loudly, how can you laugh loudly. I know friends of mine who say that we were always told dant dikhakar mat hasa karo. So there have been, at every point in my time, we are told what you can't do, what you should not do, what you should not laugh loudly, uproariously. The way we bring up our sons is so different from the way we bring up our daughters. And I think in this cutting down to size that happens of women, in this bonsaiing that happens of women, our opinions have ceased to matter because our voices are not loud enough, our voices are not strong enough, and several times we ourselves give up the fight. Chodo na, why do I pick up this battle too? But then you and I know that Rosa Parks picked up that battle and said, I will not get up from this seat. And that was the beginning of the end of segregation. And therefore, each woman, in a small way or a big way, standing up to be counted, standing up to say, I want my voice to be heard, will collectively ensure that the voices of women are heard. And once the voices of women are heard, our opinions will matter. As a group, as a cohort, as a sisterhood, we will be able to stand up and say, I mattered. My presence on this earth was significant because my voice got heard. Which is why I think this book is so very seminal, because it's the voice of 25 of the best of best. It's the voice of 25 women. It's the voice of 25 strong stories. And within these stories are stories of 25 lakh, 25 crore, 25 million other women. And that is why this book is so powerful. And, I got the book just a couple of days ago. I glanced through it. I read a couple of stories. And I think the way you have captured different emotions, different feelings. So there is a sense of sadness in stories like A Promise is a Promise by Natasha Sharma. There is a there is a sense of good cheer and happiness in stories from like The Car Keys by Nupur Joshi Bapat, and my friend Sulekha Bajpayee's story of Navjot Nubhonu. There is a sense of optimism in stories like Jalebi by Rena Lopez. But the stories may be very different. The underlying fact in all these stories is the female gaze. This is how women look at the world. These are feelings of women. These are the emotions that a woman goes through. This is her perspective. And that, I believe, is the unifying thread of all these stories, that every woman at the end of the day is the same. And I think that's the joy that we draw from each other. Our experiences may be different, they may go along different paths, but at the root, we are a sisterhood, we are a community. And to me, this book also embodies the feeling of community that is so much required in today's day when all of us are isolated away from each other. With this, I would like to congratulate each of you, because for me, as I said, this says that not only these 25 women who've written the book matter, but every woman on this planet matters. So congratulations to all of you, and I wish all success to each of you and to the book.
Thank you so much, Apurva. Thank you for these motivating words, and how well this was put, that every woman represents so many other women in the universe. So it is not about one woman, but it is about several women that one woman is representing. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I would now like to request Sohin to say a few words, because it was only because of him that this book was possible. Sohin, please, over to
So,
you.
what I'd like to say, it was actually not because of me that the book was possible. It was actually thanks to Ekta and Aruna. Aruna has spearheaded everything, and Ekta has magically put it all together. Uh, I can't use another word because they've just done it like magic. I don't know when it happened, how it all came together, and it was like magically stories surfaced. Magically, it all came together, and and I love the cover. I love the way the book looks. I love the format, the feeling, and there's something that I'd like to share. I got a couple of copies home, and I kept them on the table. And after 2 days, my mother was reading through uh, like the stories, and and when I told her that we are having a launch tomorrow, she says, "Oh, do you know about the Uber story? And do you know about the chai wala? And do you know?" And she started discussing all the stories with me. And yeah, she said that Navjot no Bono feels like, I've been there and I've felt this. And it was that resonating with the stories. And mm, and I felt that if the stories can touch my mother, they would touch so many readers. And I feel that that is what is important, that it touches the lives of readers. And Embassy Books stands for life-changing books. We want our books to have a positive impact on the world. So I feel that this book is really doing that. And I passionately love short stories. I have read hundreds of them, maybe more. And I know that it's very difficult. It takes a lot of courage to write. So I think that there's a lot of courage in this community of ladies here. I wouldn't have the courage. I mean, I can read them, but it takes a lot of courage. So I really want to congratulate all of you that you all have put together such a beautiful list. I think my mother is sitting right here and she wants to say that she loved the book. So she's the one who's actually reading the book right now. So I wanted to bring a reader on board and say, see, she's got markings on the book. She's actually marked. I don't know whether the book is showing, but she's got post-its on the book saying which one she likes, which story she's reading. And she just, so there's a reader for you saying she loved your book.
I'm not good at expressing, but I told him that I really loved this, especially about the dreams. And I said, even the chaiwala can show us the way, like, how and what, like, the discussion was like, it was too good, like even Navjot Bonu and dreams and 2-3 I really loved. The Maggie Point I really loved by Nasreen Khan.
Thank you so much.
So that's it from a reader.
Very special.
You got it from a reader. All the, you've got it from a reader.
Yeah,
so
too good, really.
And I really want to thank Apurva ma'am also for being here. It was really nice of you. We at Embassy Books, we actually sell a lot of your books, and every Women's Day, it's like our favorite sell. So I'm just so happy that you're here with us. It's really a delight. And of course, like to Ekta and Aruna, but to all of you, thank you so much. I am so grateful that I'm a catalyst in bringing this book to the world. And thank you.
Thank you, Sohin.
Over to you, Aruna.
Thank you, Sohin. Thank you so much. And now as Sohin puts it, the magic of the book was created by Ekta, the woman behind the book. So Ekta, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to Sohin for being, the support system and for really taking this project and for suggesting this idea. I would actually like to thank Aruna. It's a joke between her and me that we gave birth together. We had a baby together.
Our baby.
Yeah, it's our baby. So it was actually Aruna's idea to have this kind of a book. And it was my dream always to have a book by Ishi. Ishi is a magazine, as you know, that amplifies women's voices. And we have been amplifying, women's voices in the magazine and non-fiction stories, the real women, real stories. But for me, this was a fresh idea that we could actually publish a book of short stories of fiction. So that has, so thank you for that. And the thing about this contest was that it not only got in such amazing writers who write fiction on one platform. For me, it was very personally meaningful because I was able to make a connection with so many women who have so many ideas inside them, and some of them, we've kept in touch even after the contest. Of course, these 25 women have made it into the book, and we are in touch now. But a lot of the other women, there were more than 200 contestants, 216. Many of them have kept in touch with me in some way or the other. And I want to share a couple of interesting stories. One of them is Ophelia. Ophelia is in the room. I just saw her name there. So Ophelia, if you're there, you can turn on your camera now. So Ophelia actually shared her real life story. It was not a fictional story. She shared an incident from her own life. And though she didn't make it to the final winners list, I somehow felt that there was value in the story and it needed to be shared. So I reached out to her that would she share it on the platform? Would she share it on Ishi? And she did. And she shared the story, and it's about how she was going through a low point in her life, a lonely point in her life, and how a baby came into her life at the church that she used to go. And so anyway, we shared that story on Ishi, and you can read it there. And the other, there was another lady, Teji. I don't know if Teji is in the room today. Let me just quickly check if she's here. Teji, are you here?
Yeah, Ekta, I'm there.
There you are. Hello. Yeah, nice to see
Hi,
you.
everybody.
So Teji is the director at Capgemini, and she also shared her real life story. And we kept in touch after that. We kept in touch, and we shared her story as well on the website. And in fact, this story went viral, right, Teji? And she got a lot of buzz in her office as well around the world. So I think that's the power of stories, and the links are there in the chat box. Manasvi has just put them there, so you can share this, read their stories. So that's what I'm coming to, that the power of stories and power of storytelling, it can really change somebody's life. And I think we women don't do it enough. And I'm a big fan of Indian women. I think we have there are so many stories inside all of us. We need platforms to speak these stories. And every time one woman shares her story, it inspires so many others to come up and share theirs. And I think these stories are empowering, not just in ways of overcoming your own challenges, but I think it helps us, like Apurva said, it gives us our share of the sky, and it helps us claim our space, claim that share of the sky. So I'm very proud that my work is helping women share their stories. And I hope to keep doing this. So for me, this is really a dream come true, that I'm even here. And now, of course, we come to the heroines of the day today, the stars of the show today, who are our 25 authors. And I will introduce them all one by one. And I'll go in the order of the stories in the book. So if you'll just give me a second. Yeah. So we'll start with Aarti Jain. Aarti, you can unmute yourself now. Aarti has worn various hats as an associate producer for an Emmy Award-winning TV series, as the co-founder of one of India's early online bookstores, as a storytelling coach, and as the producer of a podcast, Story Jam, where she narrates texts from Hindi and Urdu literature. Her work has also appeared in various publications. Now, her story in our book is called Skyward Bound. So tell us, Aarti, what inspired you to write this story of a bride in Punjab?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good. It wasn't really just a bride in Punjab. Like all of you all have said earlier, one story is actually drawing from threads from various other stories. Though the germ of this particular story could be my various travels back and forth from between California and India. And I find that airports and immigration lines and long haul waits are a great place for finding stories. And as it happens, I was always traveling always in the many, like I lived in California for 10 years, so back and forth, always traveling with some of the other new bride or a new mother from Punjab who's making her way back to California or is traveling onwards to Canada and all of that. And there were always these little, interesting things. And there's always a little bit of pain and a little bit of excitement if they're going for the first time, and a little bit of sorrow of leaving what's behind. And one sees oneself in those faces, and there are funny parts of it too. Like there was an occasion where a young mother just dumped her baby on, in my arms and walked away because she'd had enough of traveling with this baby for 12 hours. So, but there's frustration, and there's pain, and there's longing, and there's dreams, and all the stuff that we're all made of, sort of consolidated in this one person, in this one space. So I've always been fascinated by their stories. I live in Delhi, so Punjab isn't that far from mind, thought, language, culture. So that was kind of a natural choice. But yeah, it's mostly just this baggage of emotion that one travels with when one lives abroad. It's probably the sort of point of germination.
Thanks, Aarti. Aarti is also a wonderful storyteller. So I think telling stories and searching stories everywhere is one of her strengths. And so that I think this is just one of, it's a manifestation of what she already does very well. So thank you, Aarti, for being here.
Thank you, Ekta.
Okay, we'll move on to the second story in the book. It's by Manisha Sahu, who got her bachelor's degree as an engineer. And she followed it up with a short stint in an IT company, and then did her master's in English. Since then, she has won several fiction writing contests, and she's now based in Bhubaneswar. Her story in this book is called A Seasonal Quiddity. Tell us, Manisha, what inspires you to write such imaginative stories with such unusual protagonists?
Well, Ekta, first of all, thank you to Ishi and Embassy Books for giving me this wonderful opportunity. This anthology is so amazing, and to be a part of it, I feel so proud and honored. And well, about my fascination with unusual objects, it's like as a writer, when we look at other people, we wonder what their story is. We try to come up with a story for them, even though we don't personally go up and ask, like, what have you, how is your life and everything, but we wonder about it. So for me, it's also with objects, daily objects or animals or other things that I come across. So I wonder what their journey has been, like where have they been and what have they witnessed and all. So going from that, like I write about so many perspectives, like whether it be from an animal perspective, object like a wall clock or a vinyl record or anything. And so for this story also, I chose one what we think is kept in the background of a story, like it stays in the background, but I thought to make it a protagonist and tell the story from their perspective. So what I find most interesting about personifying things like this is giving a personality to them. It's easier to do that than with a person because they are complex and all, but with things I can design my own personality and make them like fit the story as I see fit. And with this, in Seasonal Quiddity, I figured I'll put a little bit of innocence into the story, and from that point of view, the settings, how it views the settings, that changes, and how it tells the story, that also changes. So the narrator is affected by its own personality. So that and everything, I usually just find something unusual to look at, and then I take it and make it the main thing. I find it very fun.
Thank you, Manisha. And it is really fun to read. And like I was telling you, I do hope to read more from you in coming years now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next writer is Neena Krishna Warrior, a former copywriter and now full-time homemaker and amateur author. She's based in Mumbai and loves traveling, meeting new people. And her story in this anthology is called The Karma Seed. So tell me, Neena, is this story based on some personal experience from your childhood in Kerala? You're mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Can you see me?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so a little bit of myself. Well, I'm a Gujarati who's married to a Malayali. So I have not lived in Kerala as such in my growing up years, but post-marriage for the last 30 odd years, I have been in and out of Kerala for, I mean, a long, long time. So this sort of a story germinated there. I think it was a very different ethos, a very different culture, a different rural setting. And for a person who's lived in Bombay, this was very, very, a real departure from a sort of life I was leading. So this story sort of germinated there, and I sort of soaked in a lot of things, you know. So I think that's what it is, you know. So a lot of, I guess it's a sort of assimilation of a lot of 30 years in and out, and taking a lot in, taking a lot out. I think that's what it is all about.
Yes, thank you. And
thank you. I want to thank all of you all, Aruna, Ekta, and all of us for giving us this sort of pedestal, I mean, a platform to give our stories. And also to my fellow writers, great going, very nice stories, very emotionally tugging. Thank you so much.
Our next writer is Dr. Preeta Vasar. Is Preeta back? She had something happening in her college today.
So I'm still in college, Ekta.
Okay. So Preeta teaches the master's program in English at Jyoti Nivas College, Bengaluru. A poet and author, her first publication, Yagya, is a book of poems based on the Mahabharata. She has written the story titled Akhila in this anthology. So tell me, Preeta, where do you find inspiration for such interesting characters and gripping plots?
Hi, Ekta, and hi, Embassy Books. Thank you so much for this anthology, and a big hi to all my fellow authors and the other two authors whose story you mentioned. Honestly, I mean, after having listened to all of them, I have no idea where I get my ideas from. It starts off as a small image, and then I think it grows in my head. And then whenever I find time, I sit down and write. About this particular story, about Akhila, it started as a writing exercise. I was working on my novella, which will be published in May. But at that point, I was working on it. So I have a writer mentor. So we did this exercise of trying to write flash fiction. So we picked a word, and the word was girl. And so this story started as a very short flash fiction. And then the ending, of course, came to me when I was writing the story. And much of the setting of the story is also, I think, I don't know about all your age groups, but many of us grew up in those, middle-class families where, buying even a Coca-Cola during the day during the week is such a struggle and things like that. So, so that came back to me, and that's why the setting is like that. Yes, and then if you've read the story, it is a very character-based story. It is based on the protagonist, Akhila, the titular protagonist, and the person who perceives. And there is an interesting irony to this, because I had limited, I don't like to write very lengthy pieces. So I had limited it to some 1,800 words. And then I mailed somebody in Ishi and asked, is it okay if I don't touch your minimum requirement? Then they said, no, you will be disqualified. So I had to elaborate. And then it is, like I said, it's ironic because it became a better story thanks to you. So you are also the winner of that story, because otherwise it would have been very sketchy and it would not have grown. But yes, so that's how it happened. And I think most of my stories emerge as characters and then the plot grows from there. But thank you so much, Ekta. And if you had not mailed me after my Virus, after you had published my poem Virus and told me, why don't you send us a short story, I really would not have sent you the story at all. So I owe Ishi a big thanks.
That's great. I didn't know this backstory. So that's interesting. So thank you. All right. Our next writer is Nasreen Khan. She's an executive coach, life coach, behavioral skills facilitator, and NLP trainer based in Delhi. She's a keen observer of human behavior, and she's fascinated by the human mind. Her story in this book is titled The Maggie Point, and Sohin's mom has already shared her praise of it. It's set in the mountains. So tell me, Nasreen, is this story born from a personal experience or a life lesson that you've learned?
Ekta, you've caught me there. It's a mixture of both, actually. So first of all, thank you so much for what you've done for all of us. And Sohin, it was such a pleasure to have your mom come in. Thank you so much for that. Since it's my first story there, it couldn't have been better to hear it from a reader like that. So thank you. So Ekta, it was actually, I love the mountains like you just called out. And it was really a trek I went on. And there really was a Maggie Point. But the interesting part was that I just loved the mountains so much that I didn't notice anything around at that point in time. I could just see the pink flowers, which I mentioned in the story. And there were others who would say, my God, this is so filthy, what's happening? And that's when it started coming to me that it is really not about what happens in life, but it is really about how are we looking at it. And then, you know, moving further, when there was this is the last point before a really steep climb where you have this chaiwala sitting. So when he looks up and he just talks so simply. And it's like the essence of life given to you so simply. So I just wrote what I had seen. It wasn't really anything coming from somewhere. So I just got lucky that you know, I had that experience that was beautiful for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's beautiful for all of us. And that's another thing I wanted to add, that a lot of the stories that we got in the contest were based on women's real life experiences, not just Nasreen's, but as I mentioned, Ophelia and Teji actually wrote their own stories, their own journeys, which were so fascinating and quite magical. You know, sometimes life is magic. I think it depends how you look at it. And I've always loved to see life as a miracle, you know. All right, so we'll move on to our next writer. That's A.V. Sridevi. She's an MBA by qualification and a homemaker by choice. She currently lives in Mumbai with her husband and 2 sons. Her story in this book is titled A Flight to Freedom. Sridevi, tell us about the most challenging part of this writing contest for you, and what was your family's response when you won?
Hi, everyone. And it feels really great to sit amidst, talented writers and with so many qualifications. I'm just taking my baby steps in writing. So it really feels great, you know. And the challenging part, there were 2 challenges. One was the expected challenge that I've been in writing groups for a couple of years. And so when we get the word prompts, my pen literally almost dries up by the time it reaches 1000 words. So it's almost like, you know, and then when I saw it was this 1800 to 2000 was the expected challenge when I entered. I was like, I had to literally stretch myself. And I was mulling over a few ideas, then as we all do, rejecting some, then you keep writing. And then, as I said, after around some words, I couldn't go ahead. And then finally, when I got an idea which I thought I could actually stretch, by the time I actually sat to write down and all that, my husband was, he's tested positive, COVID positive. So, and then it was like, this was the unexpected challenge. The mind kept saying, so what, it's okay, you need not write. It doesn't matter, it hardly matters. But then you keeping on, silencing the mind, managing it that, no, I have got to stretch myself. I have got to do it for myself. I've got to, so managing the mind, handling the tougher things at home and then writing, that was the unexpected challenge. And about the family, they were elated. When I first, broke it to my husband, he was happy. But then I think he said, but I knew you would win. He had more faith in me than I myself. My children immediately, they put it on their WhatsApp status, Instagram stories, as it happens with these, current generations. And we had a pizza party.
Great. Great. I didn't know about your husband having COVID at that time. So
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
hope everything is good now.
Yeah. It was. It was. So in that way, it was. This is a kind of It's like memorable, and then it is. You feel nice that you have stretched yourself.
Yeah. Then it pays off. You're stretching yourself has paid off. Yeah. True. All right. Thank you. Our next writer is Sulekha Bajpai. She's a bilingual script, story, dialogue, and lyrics writer. She's a published poet as well as an advertising professional based in Mumbai, and she has many memorable catchlines to her credit. Her story in this book is titled Navjot Nu Bhonu, which also Sohin's mom has mentioned and Apurva has also mentioned. So Sulekha, tell us, why did you pick a Parsi protagonist and theme for your story?
I'm a film writer, primarily from quite a few years. I'm writing films from 2003. So my whole endeavor has been to develop characters, because we do not remember a film, we actually remember those characters, whether it's a Munna Bhai, whether whatever, we remember Piku because of the character that Amitabh Bachchan is. So one is driven that way, to write about a certain character. And it so happened to me that this was a phase when I had just quit my job and I was feeling lost, and I was trying to write films and I was trying to read books and become a script writer. And then characters kept floating, because one is always like a, searching for stories all the time. So because I was at home, I had my film career had not yet taken off in a big way, so I just thought that lock myself in a room and just write whatever comes to me. So I've been observing cultures, like living in Mumbai, you see Gujaratis, you see Marwadis, you see Maharashtrians. I'm married to a Maharashtrian. You see people behave in a certain way and their whole world is a different world, So I had just thought of this idea and I locked myself into the room. I was so frustrated at that point, thinking that bhaji wala, doodh wala, all the time I'm just doing this housewife kind of role, which I had never done before. Because I used to work in advertising and very high flying job. But when I had these kids, I had to be at home. So I was feeling trapped. And this gave me that freedom to just lock myself in a room and come up with something. And the whole story actually poured out of my head. Hoobahu, जैसी मैंने लिखी है वैसे ही. I didn't change a word. And I read it and I said, did I write this? Like your mind went into a zone. I was afraid that if I don't do this, what will happen to me? I've left my job. My film career, which I want, has not yet started. What will I do? So I wrote it, then in that fear that agar nahi likha to nahi hoga. So this is the only story I have written, which is a kind of a literary, as in English, Otherwise, I write stories which are word pictures, which are scenes. Screenplay writing is a different grammar altogether. So now, of course, a lot of films have come, but this remains very close to my heart. So I'm trying to create that, that you feel aroused. You think of the food, you can actually smell the food. You can think of this character about clothes. So I tried, but I didn't have to do any effort somehow. वो निकल आया दिमाग से. So I'm very grateful to all of you, Sohin, to your mom, to Ekta, to Aruna, to all my friends here. And I just want to say one thing, that, just remember, all of you have to remember this, that none of us are actually some top ka gola. It's just that sometimes we're able to write, sometimes we can't. We should just reach out to each other and continue with the sisterhood, where, you want to, like I was very fascinated by the Kerala story, where that tree saves the life. I quite loved it. So I wanted to experience that, and speak to the writer. I hadn't seen any of you. So we should remain connected and we should reach out to each other if we are stuck. Because now we have a sense of sisterhood,
Yes, thank you, Sulekha. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to our next writer, that's Natasha Sharma. She's a software developer based in Pune. Brought up as a Navy kid, she has an 8-year-old daughter and has only recently started dabbling in fiction. Her story in this book is called A Promise is a Promise, and Apurva also mentioned this one. Tell me, Natasha, as someone who has worked in, tech companies, you've been in the tech sector, did you ever expect to win a writing contest and be a published author one day?
Honestly, no. When this competition did come about, when they announced, when Nisha announced that, they have a competition for women, so I'm so excited about the whole idea. And Because the only writing that you do when you're a technical person is, you keep writing your requirement documents and, your related absolutely mind-numbing kind of work that you do. So it's such a pleasure to write something which is, non-technical. And a few years back, I quit my job, and I sort of started. I started writing because I used to narrate stories to my daughter, just to get her to eat food, because she's food challenged. And from that point, my journey started from that point. So when I started writing children's stories, and then I moved on to my first love, fiction, and that's how. And this lockdown has been it's been so beneficial, despite being locked in, and there's an absolute increase in workload, but it has given me so much of time to to be able to think and write. And it's really been a very creative opportunity for me. And having said that, as Sudekha Clay pointed out, we should all stay together. Maybe we can ask each other for for your creative inputs when I write a story, because a writer can understand, and they can get what is in your mind, and that sort of makes it easier for us to proceed. So thank you, Ekta, thank you, Aruna, thank you, Sohail, and thank you all of you.
Thank you so much, Natasha, and I look forward to you sharing your thoughts and your experiences on Ishi's platform very soon. And moving on to our next writer, we have Dr. Shalini Malik. She's a keen reader turned writer. She writes non-fiction, poetry, and fiction. She's also a practicing doctor specializing in pulmonary pathology. Her short stories and flash fiction contributions are published on various platforms. So it's like a really multi-talented and kind of personality. Her story in this book is called La Bella Revenja. Tell me, Shalini, there is a common saying that women are women's worst enemies. Do you believe this, or do you think women can be women's best friends too?
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think it's very interesting that you asked this question just after Apurva mentioned sisterhood, and so did Sulekha. So I think in spite of those, all of us have, little events from our lives where we've heard that, maybe felt it. So I think there are two things happening here. First is, let's, a few examples of what we've seen, the policing mother, the controlling mother-in-law, even the oppressive boss. I think they are as much products of the patriarchy as the people they're oppressing. I don't think that those women have really had the space to find themselves. And that is why their actions, their conditioning is seen as oppressing. They have not had the chance to experience sisterhood. They're behaving like programmed in certain ways from generations of patriarchy. So that's one. And whom does this suit? This suits the misogynist, right? So what does he do? He takes this situation, perpetuates this myth, and he adds a gender divide or a gendered perspective to universal emotions. Jealousy, rivalry, competition, anger, these are universal emotions in friendships, families, right? They are not gender specific. But you give it that tinge that women behave in a particular way. So what happens is the misogynist gets away with this concept, and you have patriarchy existing, and you have women pitted against women. So, I think that's what's happening here. Women are not enemies of women. People who are still under a patriarchal system are enemies of women empowerment. I think that's how we should see it, So that's my thing. And I think that's what I wanted to bring out in some ways in the story also. Having two women together, who unwittingly help each other, but they do help each other, right?
Yes, true. Unwittingly, but
yeah,
yes. It's a very satisfying ending, though, I must say.
Yeah. Thank you. I didn't want any one of them to be the victim. That was very important for me. So.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Our next writer is Nupur Joshi Bapat, lives in Pune with a husband and 5-year-old daughter. A software engineer by profession, Nupur discovered her love for writing early in her school days and now runs a blog. She's written the story The Car Keys in this book, which is the story of a family. Tell us, Nupur, Don't you think we women, especially Indian women, make sacrifices for our families in so many ways that people don't even realize?
Hi, Ekta. First of all, thank you and the publishers. It's a great honor to be in presence of such talented women and to be published alongside with them. So, first of all, thanks. And coming to your question, so sacrifice, I would say, is a very heavy word. What I think is choice. So, without giving spoilers about my story, the protagonist of my story, what she did, she made a choice from the situation which she got into. And that is what I think all of us do. They might not be such dramatic experiences, but small experiences like choosing between family and job. So, where your heart lies and what your priorities are, I would say that whole mix, and more than what others think, it's excelling in your own eyes. What matters to us, living a regret-free life. Yeah, thank you.
I
Thank
also,
you so much.
also because of so many women today have shared that they had left their jobs, and for me this also ties up in the context of often families kind of take it for granted that if a job has to be left, it will be the woman's job which will have to be left. So I think this is a place that we're actually talking about it, and we're sharing these stories, and maybe there will be some kind of a catharsis for some of us, and maybe there'll be some kind of a resolution for some of us that we've made these choices because they were our priorities at some point.
Yeah,
like you
and
said.
I would like to add a thing to this, making a choice of choosing between family or job or anything else. I would say this is a kind of empowerment. That is what I think what Apurva said in the beginning, that coming to the 21st century, we are getting to get equal to the other gender. So I think this is what we are privileged to do these days.
Thank you so much, Nupur.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, moving on to our next writer, Divya Vartika. She's an introvert who lives in a small town somewhere in India with her husband. She's an IT engineer and has an MBA degree. She's worked for over a decade in IT and cybersecurity for companies like Accenture and Deloitte. Currently, she's a full-time writer. Her story is titled Memories Forgotten. Divya, having worked in the corporate setup, what are the pros and cons of being a full-time writer?
Oh, thanks, Ekta, for asking this question. I worked in corporate sector for a long time, and I've moved to being a full-time writer very recently. In corporate terms, I'm still on probation being a writer. Saying that, there are many pros of being a full-time writer. First, I have freedom, not just over my time, but over my mental capabilities. Like, I don't have to think about what others want from me. Even while I'm doing my household work and other things, I can keep thinking about my stories. I can still keep spinning. The characters are still talking in my head. That's a big pro for me. Along with that, I mean, I don't miss the traffic that I used to face every day during my commute. There are some cons as well. Since I don't have a routine anymore, it's very easy to go down this path of procrastination. It's very easy to say, oh, I'll finish that article after lunch, or maybe I'll write that tomorrow. That does keep happening. I hope with time, I'll better be able to manage my time properly. Getting to this milestone, getting my first story published, that's a big thing for me. And standing here with such amazing and strong writers, everyone comes from such strong backgrounds, have written so many books, some are new like me. It just makes me feel like I'm not alone in this journey. I belong to a community, the sisterhood. And thank you, Ekta, and thank you, Sohail, for this opportunity. Thank you, Aruna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, we'll move on to our next writer, Sangeeta Das. She was born and raised in Shillong, Meghalaya. She's trained as a biochemist and is now a learning and development professional based in Bengaluru. Her story in this book is called Dream. So, Sangeeta, do you think that the great Indian middle class doesn't really know how to dream for ourselves, and like we just sort of follow the dreams our parents had for us?
Hi, thank you, Ekta. Thank you so much. And initially, the first that I want to do is thank you and your team for that enormous work, for collating all the stories, looking at it, reading each one of them and editing. And I think that you have done a humongous and such a beautiful, that humongous task has been done so beautifully. And congratulations to all my fellow co-authors, such beautiful stories, beautiful narratives, creative minds behind it. I love reading all the stories. I mean, I'm still reading a few of them. And it's nice, so emotionally, everything is so emotionally wrapped. And yes, coming to the story, coming to your question, yes, we do that. Most of us, we dream and automatically we customize our dreams according to the specifications put across by our parents, not only just our parents, our family members, society. We are so dominated and barricaded by society and the societal norms that sometimes we forget to live. Sometimes, and even media adds to that myth, nowadays. What should I study? What should I grow up to be? What type of people should be my friends? Even such questions, whom should I marry? How should I behave? If I marry, should I have kids? So it's this whole circle that we are always part of, and we get entangled. So when all of these are bound, and all of these are bound and restricted, how does one dream? Because it is so, it is cultured and cultivated in a petri dish and given to us. And that's how we are supposed to live. To extend our boundaries, it is very difficult. So we tend to unconsciously limit our dreams and aspirations and resort to taking the road most traveled, not the less traveled. So some people, yes, sometimes we break those shackles and emerge victorious. And dreams are that one thing, right, which is our own. So expand your horizon, open your wings, fly. And that's exactly what Rohitesh did. He dreamt, he had no boundaries, he had a happy dream. And that's exactly what it said, right? What is life without a happy dream of our own? And I believe in that. And that's what my story was about. And I'm so happy that it's published and people are reading it, and it's nice. And thank you everybody again, and thank you Ekta again.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, now moving on to our next writer, who's probably the youngest writer in the group, Ruchika Verma. She's a literature student whose heart lies in the classics. She wrote her first novel at the age of 16, and she works part-time as a PR specialist for a technology firm. She has written the story An Autumn Leaf in this collection. Tell me, Ruchika, do you think parents today end up limiting their daughters' freedom in the name of protection?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this question, and thank you to Ishi and Investi for publishing this. I mean, it's huge, and congratulations to all the writers, first of all. It's great sharing this space here. So coming to this question, I think a lot of parents do that, even if it is done, very unintentionally. They tend to limit their, not only their daughters, but even their children, maybe it's a daughter or a son. Their freedom is often limited in the name of, protection, especially with daughters. And I understand the parental concern that, the society is such, and I don't really have to elaborate on that. So I understand the need to protect your daughters to make sure that they are out of the harm's way. But I also believe that parents should give their child a chance to, find their own ways. One of my favorite, and that might be a bit weird, it is that, you should let your child go to the cliff at least. They can decide to jump. I mean, if they decide to jump in, then, just barge in and stop them from jumping in, but at least give them a chance to, find their way and actually go to that cliff, and give them a choice whether they want to actually jump in or, just take a step back. Because despite what many parents think, children do know when they have to, step back from a certain situation. And I've been really fortunate in this way, because my parents have given me ample of freedom, be it allowing me to go on solo trips or be it to allow me to pursue the way that I wanted to. But my story was mostly inspired from so many friends that I have, and so many times they tell me, oh, we cannot do this and we cannot do that because our parents would not allow. And one of the main things that they told me, oh, like you are so lucky because you have such an understanding mother. And the thing is, I cannot tell them that, it is not always that easy, because even when she is giving me freedom, there are times when she restricts me from doing such simple things that it frustrates me so much. So I believe that yes, parents do tend to limit their child in the name of protection. And though I understand it, and I cannot really relate to what it must be like to be a parent yet, but I really do think that they should give their child a chance, to really find their way. I mean, stop them from making mistakes, but, at least give them a chance to, decide what they want to do. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think your story pretty much puts that point across, and whoever reads it will hopefully get the point that you're trying to make. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to Raina Lopez. She works as a software engineer at a renowned multinational company, but she's a writer at heart. She's written the story Jalebi in this anthology. Tell me, Raina, were you inspired by any real life incident when you set out to write this piece?
Ekta, I would not say that a real life incident drove me to write this story. Rather, it's a reality which is faced by many women across the world. Before laying out Aisha's character in the story, I had brainstormed a lot, and I was looking for that one life-changing event that would leave the reader thrilled, something that would create a very huge impact. And as they say that every writer leaves a tinge of their life experiences in their characters, so did I. I had my own set of insecurities, inhibitions in the past, which I have brought out in the form of the character's vulnerability. And I'm sure that everyone has their own set of flaws which they shy away from embracing. Jalebi is a story that will teach you to own and win over them, just like the crooked yet sweet dish.
Thank you. Actually, your video hasn't been working while you spoke, but we could hear you. So thank you for sharing your thoughts there. And I'm sure your story is going to influence a lot of especially young audiences out there, and it's so relevant. The whole idea of revenge porn actually is very relevant for this generation, the digital generation. So thank you for writing that story. All right, we now come to Sapna. Thank you. We come to Sapna Dogra Singh. She's a journalist and has worked at some of India's biggest media companies. Her story is titled The Night Out. Sapna's protagonist is a homemaker who is practically a slave to her family's needs. Sapna, did you intend this story to be reflective of the reality of Indian homes, or were you using an artist's prerogative and presenting an extreme situation?
This is certainly not my. I would not say that it is. It is an extreme situation. Like Apurva also said in the beginning that women are everywhere. Women have achieved so much, but still there is that little inch. There is still a gap which has to be fulfilled. So this is the reflection of the society. Where a woman is still considered subservient to her parents, then husband, later maybe to her children. So it doesn't matter if a woman is very highly educated or she's just a homemaker, but she will have to shoulder all the responsibilities, because you see all around us, women who are successful, they have brilliant careers, but still when they reach home, they have to do household works, their husbands, man is still considered only a breadwinner. People won't expect a man to come home and do household chores, like a woman is expected to do. So I've seen women like Ella all around me, and this story is fictional, but somewhat it is based on what I've seen around me, and so this is not far from reality, I would say. So, there's so many women around us who have sacrificed their ambitions, their careers, and leading a monotonous life and, drab existence. I mean, they would, of course, when a woman is expected to look after her family, her children, and, so I guess this is, it is everywhere. I'm sure all women will resonate with this, that this is what is happening. It's still happening. We are in 21st century and we are trying to reach Mars, but women are still, they have not got their place on the earth, so it is still there's a lot to do. And so that's what prompted me to write. This is my first fiction story. I've been writing hard facts on energy and nuclear power and other things. So it was amazing, that the story got selected among such brilliant writers. And I've been reading other authors, and really, some of the stories are so good, So thank you so much, Ekta, once again for giving this chance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I must say that we had 3 judges for the contest. It was a completely transparent process. We had a marking sheet and the marks were added up. So all of you who are here are completely here on your own merit, and your stories have earned points from all 3 of us. And like I was sharing with one of you, that all 3 of us actually had very diverse reading tastes and different kinds of choices. So the ones that finally made it to the book are the ones that got points from all of us. So it's all your merit, really. We'll move on to the next writer. Dr. Urvashi Tandon is a professor of anesthesiology. She has served in the Indian Navy for 29 years before seeking premature retirement. She has written articles for various magazines and has authored a collection of short stories for children. Her story in this book is called The Resurrection. Urvashi, you and I go back a long way. She has also been writing for Ishi from time to time, but that is, as she says, it's her second career after so many years in the Navy as a doctor. Do you think that sometimes even a tragic event in one's life can turn out to be a blessing in disguise?
Oh, yes, most certainly. The only thing is that when the event happens, you don't really realize it. It's only when you look back, when you feel, pieces of a jigsaw puzzle fall into place, and you get that aha moment when you say, okay, so this is why, and this is how. So yeah, I mean, life is full of ups and downs, and you grow from every tragic event. It's only when something shakes you up that you break out of the routine, Otherwise, you could lead a very mundane, routine kind of a job, of a day or a life. But when you are shaken up and stirred, that's when you have the ability, or hidden potential emerges, and you grow from in character, strength of character, as well as otherwise you find potential in yourself that you don't know exists. So you surprise yourself on several occasions. And that's what I tried to portray in Sudha's character as well. That for someone who was not educated, and she still could stand on her own feet and make it big. So yeah, I think you can really grow from something that's so adverse. And I'm not going to go the routine way of, what I found remarkable today was you could resonate with almost everything, every author, something or the other that each one of them said clicks and links us all together because you can resonate with it. And yeah, like you said, Ekta, we go back a very long time. So by saying a routine, thank you, Ekta. I can't thank you enough. It's just that now I have Embassy Books to thank as well. So thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Our next writer is Dr. Anushri Bose. She's a clinical researcher at NIMHANS, Bengaluru. She has a PhD in psychiatry, a master's in psychology, and specializes in the scientific study of mental disorders like schizophrenia. The story in this collection is titled Moon Dust. So tell us, Anushri, what do you find most fascinating about human nature, and how have you been exploring it through your poetry and fiction?
Hi, thank you, Ekta. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for the warm welcome. And what fascinates me most about human nature is the way we tell stories, especially in our head, So as Dr. Urvashi so nicely pointed out, I was listening to the narratives of these wonderful ladies, some have quit their jobs, some are struggling. And, there is this sense of facing our own demons and what we do with that. So this is what fascinates me most. I'll give you a very, small example. It happens so subconsciously to us. Suppose I'm reading a book and it's fairly difficult, right? So I could think, oh, how stupid am I? Or I could think, oh, this is really difficult. Let me go and get some help. So I think we don't do this to ourselves consciously, but we are often putting some values and judgment to every little thing. And it is these little, how do I say it? Unexamined values or judgment perception, how we go about assessing our circumstances and people around us, which shapes us, our personality, and ultimately decides the quality of our life. So this is what fascinates me most, how we perceive our own reality, how we talk to ourselves about that, and how we interact with others, how those stories come out. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure and a blessing to be among such wonderful people over here. Such a wonderful job has been done with the book. I could not be more joyous or grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And our next writer is also a doctor. She's a pediatrician from Mumbai, Dr. Arwa Bhavnagarwala. She's a mother of two, and her writing journey began 5 years ago. Since then, her stories have been published on various platforms and in anthologies. Her story in this book is called At Home Finally, and it's based on the Mumbai communal riots. Tell me, Arwa, how do you see your role as a writer? Do you think art is about reflecting life, or does art also influence life?
Hi everyone, it's really an honor and a privilege to be here. And yes, coming to your question, so writing came to me at a very difficult time in my life. When I began writing, it was all about channeling my inner upheaval into something positive. It was like a catharsis for myself. I didn't have any audience in mind. But over the years, as my writing improved and I got some recognition, writing became my second nature. Now I do see my role as someone who can portray the happenings in our surroundings through stories. I believe that these stories can help in bringing about positive change, especially in the lives of women. I feel that as writers, as women writers, we can collectively come together and make our voices heard to make some positive change really visible in our daily lives. The more we amplify our voices, the farther we reach. And regarding the influence of art on life and its reflection, I feel art is all inclusive. Be it any form of art, music, painting, writing, making movies, all of the artists derive their inspiration from things around us. But the perspective that the particular artist Now, coming to my story in the book, as we all know, the communal riots were something that had ransacked an entire city. But at the end of it, what we had were numbers of lives lost, amount of property destroyed. It did not connect with us emotionally. It did not stir our souls. But as an artist, I thought of taking up an individual story. So this story which I've portrayed is true. It has happened with the domestic help who worked at my place. So I thought of taking up that story and writing it in such a way that it connects to us on a deeper level, and it makes us reflect what we could have done to avoid such things. In fact, what we can do to prevent such things from happening in the future. It may bring about change, right? So art has to reflect our surroundings as well for change to happen. So yes, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think you're absolutely right. Art does reflect reality, but it reflects reality with a perspective. And that's where it has the ability to influence other people who have probably not had that experience. All right, thank you. Now we'll move on to our next writer. That's Priyambada Singh. She's worked in television across Mumbai and Delhi for over a decade before giving it all up because she wanted to pursue her vision of restoring a 150-year-old ancestral fort in Rajasthan, which she calls her Meja project. It's in Meja. She's won various awards, including the Nari Shakti Puruskar for this endeavor that blends heritage restoration and socio-cultural resurrection. She has written the story, You Are All Menials, in this book. So Priyambada's story has also been featured in Ishi when she started the Meja project. I think Ishi was one of the first publications to talk about her. It's a very brilliant and a very interesting project. So you can check that out. Priyamata, you've talked about patriarchal mindsets in our country in your story. Do you think that these are so inbuilt in our society that men and even women don't even notice it most of the time?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to say a big thank you to Ekta, Aruna, Sohin, and everybody else at Ishi and Embassy Books for creating this wonderful opportunity for all of us and for bringing us all together today. It's such a pleasure to see all of you. And now to broach upon the topic of patriarchy, I think it would be pretty apt to say that, patriarchy is quite deep-rooted in most regions of our country. And especially where I come from, it's been embedded so deeply into our lives for such a long time that, sometimes we don't even notice, if we are witnessing it, or for that matter, even when we are experiencing it ourselves, So that's the reason I wanted to touch upon this topic, along with the other, relevant topic of mental health. Because, I wrote this story, like most of us here, during the pandemic. And, that was the time, I think mental health was, suddenly there was this upsurge of, these discussions all over, which was like such a welcome change. And I kind of, that is what I think kind of inspired me. And I wanted to, include both these really, really important subjects of mental health as well as patriarchy into my story. And I really hope that, it strikes a chord with the readers. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I think this was, you've not written fiction before. This was one of your first ones. Yeah. I was very surprised to see, your name in the list of, in the contestants. But anyway, it's a very interesting story and a very interesting point of view. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, our next writer is Dr. Bhargavi Chatterjee Bhattacharya. She's a renowned psychiatrist based in Kolkata. She has written the story of Father's Daughter in this anthology. Just this week, she was coincidentally selected as one of 25 most inspirational women by the Royal College of Psychiatrists in London. So congratulations, Bhargavi, you made it to 225 lists in the same week. Do your experiences as a doctor in England and India provide the fodder for your stories?
Right. Thank you, Ekta. Thank you. Yeah, I think my rich experience in England and India formed the backdrop of most of my stories. And just today, I was analyzing my trajectory as a writer. Because when I first started writing, my focus was on public education. I wrote articles in web magazines, in newspapers, in journals, etc. For example, I wrote about handling difficult children, and I was awarded the Maurice Marquis Public Education Prize, again by the Royal College of Psychiatrists in England for this piece. And then I wrote about terrorism and its implications for policy, which was a journal article. I shifted gears during the pandemic. The pandemic was undoubtedly a life-changing experience, not just for me personally, but for everyone across the globe. And when the lockdown started, I had the time to pause and reflect, taking some time off from my busy schedule. And at that time, I felt that I wanted to write stories. Stories inherently appeal to people because people forget chunks of information. They forget statistics, but stories stick. People can relate to stories. I've already written a book, and this is my second publication. Professionally, as a psychiatrist, I enjoy emotionally connecting with people. I think Dr. Anushri Bose will echo my feelings. And this is the most rewarding aspect of my work. Now, through writing, I hope to connect to people in general. And a very big thank you to Ekta Kapoor, Aruna Joshi, Shohin Babu for making it possible. Thank you to all 24 of us. Thank you to Tej. Thank you to Ophelia. And thanks for listening in. I know they're in the audience. Dr. Tara Chatterjee, Dr. Gargi Chatterjee, Dr. Tubi Shurja Chakraborty, Dr. Shomajita Chakraborty, and thanks for joining all the way from Oxford, my son, Dr. Tubi Saraswat Bhattacharya. They're all big champions of women's rights, and I'm delighted that they could make it today on my special day.
Thank you so much, and congratulations for 2 honors in the same week.
Thank
and
you.
your story is
coincidence,
yeah, it's a big coincidence.
The other one I'll have to dance actually.
We should have made you do some dance here as well then, yeah.
Thanks, you didn't ask me to do that.
Yeah. You told me too late, yeah. I would have asked you to dance. All right. Next writer, we have Chandrika R. Krishnan. She's a writer and educationist based in Bengaluru. Her stories have been published in 10 anthologies so far. And she's just brought out her own collection of flash fiction. And that's also coincidentally just this month. She's written the story titled The Allure of Power in this book. So tell me, Chandrika, what was on your mind when you wrote this story for the Ishi contest?
At the outset, hi all. At the outset, thank you, Ekta. Thank you, Aruna. Thank you, Sohen. And all you wonderful writers. Now, I have not been in a film background. I don't know anything about film, but I only know one thing is when I was about 17, I got the psoriasis. And psoriasis, 17 years, psoriasis in my body. Oh my God, the world fell around me. And I met my family doctor who said, Chandrika, do one thing. I visited Madras. I was actually brought up in Hyderabad. And he said, you're staying in your grandparents' house, go to the bus stop and watch people. And you will realize that you're not the only one who is suffering. And I didn't go to the bus stop, obviously, but I think that resonated in my mind. And he also said, read a lot of film magazines. Then you will understand, you will read about their life and then you will wonder what are they doing in their life, and then you will be happy. Now, half the film magazines we all know is gossip. But then, not that I am so crazy about film magazine, but these little nuggets of information remains in my mind. And I am mostly a watcher. I watch people and I make my own stories. Nothing with real life. It's all fictional. So much so that, even my husband says, even the conversation you have with me is fictional. And even my children also say that, because I come up with my own ideas. You said it. He said, no, I never said it. I said, no, you did say it. So I think, so I am into film and I write a lot of articles. Earlier, I used to write as an educationist. I wrote mostly about education and parenting. But now I have realized that whatever we write, the children grow on their own and we have no say in the matter. So now I have left it. So I don't write anything about education, anything about parenting. I write about fiction. To people, in fact, I forgot that it is my turn. I was wondering because I was listening to so many of you and oh my God, that girl, little girl, at her age, I don't think I even could string 4 words to make a sentence. Yeah. It's amazing. Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And really, we really do have a very diverse, selection of writers here. In fact, for me, that's the most exciting part of putting this book together, that, everybody is so different from each other and the stories are so different. I'm so glad that I've been a part of this. Okay, our next writer is Priyadarshini Sharma. She's been with the Hindu newspaper for the past 18 years. But before that, she's had a very interesting journey. After raising 3 children, managing a family tea business, and even launching her own popular tea cafe in Kochi, she went back to college to study journalism and then to do her master's in literature. I found, the story is worth actually writing as a story. It's so interesting, your journey. Her story in our book is called The Dance, and it's a very poignant sort of piece. Tell me, Priyadarshini, do you think that women in our country are afraid of even dreaming for themselves?
Okay. So, hello, Ekta, and thank you so much. Thank you, Ishi and Embassy Books. First, let me thank everybody because it's really been like, a very nice platform you offered all of us. I write almost daily for the newspaper. So writing comes, but reporting comes easy, but writing a story is not that simple. So this platform was really very, very exciting for us. And to make it to this platform was really too much. It is very sort of overwhelming to be here with all these distinguished writers. Some of them are absolutely amazing. They're doctors. I can't even imagine I'm, with such qualified people on the same platform. And as she said, there's a naval officer. There is the youngest writer. I think I'm so excited to see the 16-year-old writing, and what a wonderful story. But I don't have the book with me as I'm traveling. So I haven't read all the stories, so I can't say. Anyway, you asked me about dreaming. So the thing is, I think more than dreaming, it's the fear which, women in India, it's the fear which grips us and which prevents us from, dreaming. But we've had these brave women who've always overcome that fear. And that's why we are where we are. We owe a lot to these women before us, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers who've done some, amazing things. They have, so in my story also, the dance becomes, it's like crossing the Rubicon. We are so hesitant to do that. And the present generation, they are doing, the women of the present generation, they have a lot more than what the previous generation had, more in terms of exposure, more in terms of confidence. But fear is what I feel women have to overcome. And for that, whatever is required, the fear, that I think is what women should, aim. They can dream, they must dream, and now they're realizing their dreams, but it's the fear, breaking the, conventions which are set. So the dance, it's something very personal, that dance during, I'm a grandmother, by the way, so I'm much older than the rest of you. So when we were young, dance was frowned upon to learn dancing in our, from the region I come. And I used to love this whole idea of dance, but we were prevented to learn dance. So later, during my journalism time, I used to interview so many dancers, famous dancers. And one common thing they said, dance is very liberating. It is very liberating. And they said, everybody should dance, man, woman, anyone, because it is. So that can be, dance can be a point, that is what I made it as a point where somebody, a decisive point in the story. So I took that metaphor. And I also like to position the protagonist as someone much older in years. I said, always let the heroine be someone who's senior.
It's a very sweet story. And yes, you're right. We should have more older protagonists in our stories. And why not? Why should we only be focused on the youth? So thank you for that point.
And I think everybody should learn to dance, and everybody should dance as to liberate, liberate ourselves, liberate ourselves from all these fears which we have, which keep us, bog us down.
So true, so true. Just yesterday, my daughter was telling me she was feeling emotionally choked, and I told her, just dance it off,
Just dance it off. Just dance it off.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Can I add here?
Yeah.
Can I add here? We should dance. We should stop dancing to others' tunes and dance for our own tunes, right?
Absolutely.
Then we must dance in the rain.
Yes, dance everywhere. Yeah. All right. Our next writer is Rajita Menon. She's a finance professional turned journalist. She studied at Asian College of Journalism and now divides her time and loyalties between her hometown of Ernakulam in Kerala and Bengaluru, which is her adopted city. She has written the story Peering Through the Mist. How do your different experiences make their way into your writing?
I think I must start by thanking you and Ishi Books for including me in such august company. I am quite awed by the qualifications of everyone here. And coming to a question, like every writer, my writings have been inspired by not just my experiences, but those of my friends, my family members, those of every woman who posts something on social media, what we screen, and stuff like that. Now, when I saw the competition announcement, I was actually on a break. I was in between jobs. And I thought that, why not take it up? But it had been a very long time since I had written fiction, or rather written something for myself. You're so used to journalism and churning out reports that you forgot how to write something that is close to your heart. And then I actually thought about what topic I could pick. And then I realized that, why not pick the one thing that every woman, every girl child listens to or is made aware of as soon as she reaches a particular age, which is marriage. So it's a very, it sort of spans age ranges and just circumstances, everything. Marriage is universal. Now, what amuses and amazes me is that how everyone around you has a say in who you should be marrying. It is not your personal choice, especially when you are a girl child. It's not your choice. Your neighbors, people you hardly know, long lost relatives, cousins from across the seas, everybody has an opinion on who you should marry. Now, if you say no to proposals, you should have a very valid reason which satisfies all of them. Like there should be visible vices. He should have very clear shades of black that should satisfy every audience member who's watching. So that's why I came across, I came up with this idea of a woman who could have had it all, but she didn't choose it because she just didn't want it. So it's this very, this woman who had her Prince Charming. He did come into her life and it was all okay, but she just did not want it at that point of time. And it's all about a woman exercising her choice, her agency, just following her heart in something which is so personal, like marriage. So that is how I came up with that idea.
Thank you. It's a very interesting story, and it does, it has a dramatic ending, so I don't want to give it away. But yes, thank you for sharing that. All right, we'll move on to our next writer. That's Shalini Vineet. She's a writer based in Bengaluru. She's worked for a decade in the electronics industry before turning to full-time writing. She's authored 4 books and has contributed to several anthologies and online magazines. Her story is called The Talking Heron. So Shalini, your story takes up different topics, actually, environment, relationships, and even mental health. Do you think fantasy fiction can help people talk about issues that they don't normally verbalize in their daily lives?
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me. So, yeah,
Yes.
Thank you, Ekta. So, The Talking Heron is a story that actually a little bit different from the style I usually write. I think that in a society we live, especially in India, the public display of our emotions or the public display of our inner feelings is kind of considered inappropriate. We have to behave all the time and we should be in control of our emotions. So most of the people, they try to live with a facade on. So that's a story also talking about, like, when we are asked a question, we often not answer from our hearts. We just try to please everyone around. What is the most appropriate answer that the society wants? So that actually leads to a lot of mental health issues these days, and lot of issues that happens these days. So I think the fiction has a power to channelize that kind of emotions into a different plane, especially fantasy fiction. If you see, it has a power to channelize and transform these emotions into a different plane, actually. So I think it's like a catharsis for both the reader and the writer. And I think the fantasy always kind of elevates a very harsh reality into a different plane, like, say, add a little bit of humor or a little bit of magic into the harsh realities of human existence and make living a little bit easier on earth. So I do believe that fiction has a power to kind of help people to express more. When you read it or you are writing it, you can be yourself a little bit better rather than being in a social setting. So that's what. And I would like to thank Ekta, Aruna, and Embassy Books, and everyone else. So I have been listening to everyone else, and it's such a kind of, I have goosebumps listening to you all. And I would also take this opportunity to thank my mother, my sister, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law, and my father, and all the women folk who are fierce feminists who stand with me all the time. So I think because of all of them, I am able to tell their stories as well. So I have this big army of feminists with me in the form of my cousins and my relatives. And I think every woman I know is a feminist. That is a really big blessing. So thank you very much for this
I think
opportunity.
you should mention your husband as well, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you won't have a very pleasant evening.
So yes, so have this kind of support is a big thing, especially to write full time. It like needs a lot of support from everyone. So thank you everyone, and it was lovely listening to you all.
Thank you so much, Shalini. I really enjoy reading your writing, and you've of course been writing on a lot. You're a prolific writer. I look forward to seeing more of that. All right, and we come to the last, but definitely not the least, and one of very interesting stories in the book. It's by Sangeeta Vallad. She's had a memorable career spanning 14 years in the Indian Railways, after which she opted for voluntary retirement. She picked up writing recently after her father passed away as a way of dealing with grief. And now she spends her time surrounded by books. Her story is the last in the book, and it's called Be the Flow. Tell me, Sangeeta, is your story drawn from your real life experiences in the railways? And do your friends and family also make it into your fiction writing?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And I'm quite delighted to be a part of this book. And actually, our baby is launched today, and it's quite blessed to have so many mothers. So I'm sure that we will all nurture it well. And when I saw this prompt, I mulled over it for a few days, and then I came up with 2-3 fictional stories. And dramatically one night, I just got up in the middle of the sleep, and I had this urge to write something, a leaf out of my own life. And I just picked my mobile, and at a stretch, it was somewhere around 3 or 4 a.m. and my husband was sleeping next to me, and I just took my mobile and tuck, I went typing, and I completed the whole story. 2,000 words, I think it was 1,800 words. I just finished it, and I, as always, my husband is the one who has to, he has to hear my stories. So I just made him sit, and I read out the story, and he was quite happy about it. He said, okay, go ahead, just do the editing. And I did share it with a few of my railway friends who were not very happy that I'm projecting railways in a bad way. And they told me, no, why don't you change it? But then I said, no, I had to tell this out. Generally, when you see corruptions, we just think of all the big wigs and the scams and all these politicians and stuff. Corruption is something which is in the grassroots level, and generally we tend to relate corruption to men. So a woman taking a bribe or tempted to take a bribe is something which is totally hush-hush. Yeah, friends and relatives popping into my story. Yes, anybody can come into my story. Ekta, maybe you might also pop in one of my stories one of these days. So be ready. It was wonderful working on this story, and I had a great time. So the last one over here, the lost sheep who found a shepherd. I'm quite happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And there was a reason we left your story as the last one, because we just wanted people to have the desire to read more so that we can have another book out.
Sure.
The way the book ends, it's so interesting. And I wanted to ask you, like, did you really have pigs and all that coming in on this platform?
Yes, the pigs. Yeah, I had pigs. I had day-old chicks which were sheeping like anything, and it was fun. It was fun. My career in railways has given me so many experiences, and I have so many stories to tell. I think I should definitely come out with a book of my experiences. Some are very serious, some are very funny, some are very thought-provoking. Yes, quite blessed to have a great experience. And my job was dealing with the public. So every day I've met so many hundreds of people, and I have so many stories to tell. Yes, please come up with the next competition soon.
Yes, absolutely. And Aruna and I are already actually plotting something up for this summer. So something will probably come up. So thank you, all of you wonderful authors. You really do have brilliant stories. All of your lives are also so interesting to me to hear, and I hope to be sharing more of this on Ishi's platform in the coming months. And thank you to all the women in your lives and to the men in your lives who have been support structures for you, who have, for me as well, who allowed us, given us that space to really share our stories out here and to be fearless. And I think we're blessed to be in each other's company. And I think it's part of our responsibility to pass it forward and to, let the next generation really be as fearless and to speak out and to share their stories. So yes, so we're going to end our
Can I just ask
event here. Yeah, please. I was just going to say if any last thoughts anybody wants to share.
Person, Ophelia, I think she's a neighbor of mine from Bandra. He's just checked.
Really?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Looking at her face, I think she's somebody I know from my childhood. She was my elder sister's friend or something. Just ask her because I can't see her.
Yes, I remember now.
Yeah, I'm Rekha's sister, Sulekha.
Wow.
You remember?
Yes.
Bandra East, right? I only know one Ophelia, and that's you.
Yes. Wow. Amazing.
You in my childhood walking around in the evenings.
Yes. Amazing. Thanks, Ekta, for bringing us together.
Yeah. I'm in Bandra West now. I've moved to
my number.
Yeah. I'm in Bandra West now. You're still in Bandra East?
No, the houses have gone for redevelopment. I've moved to Malad. That's it.
And Ophelia's story is on the website. You must read it. It's very interesting.
Read it. Ophelia, you should read mine as well.
Purchase the book.
Ekta, some
Yes,
good news. So while we were having this talk, I got messages, and we've actually got a few hundred copies out while we were having this chat. So we had we do a lot of corporate sales. So a few corporates have actually said we would love to use this book for our Women's Day gifting.
Oh wow!
And I was so happy that the messages were rolling in while we were having this event. So I thought it would be music to all the authors' ears, and I would I didn't know whether to say it at the end of it, but yes.
Thanks.
So it's going out into the world.
Great, that's good news. And these stories should be read. They're actually like even Apurva said, this is the female gaze. This is stories of Indian women, and it's stories of how Indian women see the world. So it's important for these stories to get out, and I'm so glad.
Such a great timing, but because it's such a great gift. So
yes. If anybody wants to share any last words, otherwise I think we can wrap it up for the day.
Just a word of, it's been so amazing, just this group that you've formed of these women. We don't know each other, but I think all of us here must be feeling that energy and that connection. It's really, really beautiful, and I think it's stemming in some way from you guys, from Embassy, from Ishi, because of the positivity you're bringing in there. So really, thank you so much for that, because it's been such a pleasurable experience, not only about the story, just the whole experience. So thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Even I would like to add something, Ekta. Thank you so much. And this whole thing of coming up with the contest and having us published and things, it has been such a morale booster. And as the name goes, everything is actually going to change after this. Thank you so much.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
My life did definitely change after that incident.
When are we going to be on Amazon internationally? A lot of people want to buy the book.
Oh, it's already uploaded on the Ingram site, which is not only Amazon, but it'll be Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders, all the popular sites.
Kindle?
Sorry?
Kindle also?
Kindle also, yes, of course, internationally. So not only the US, but US, UK, Australia, wherever books are sold.
Okay, that's great.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ekta. You've always been a very inspiring editor to work with. I know that I've worked with you earlier as well. And I hope, I'm looking forward to whatever's cooking up for summer.
Yes, definitely. And I hope all of you, like, everything changes in a very positive way and everybody grows from this point. And I'm also, rooting for a few of the stories to go into short films or long films or whatever it is. But inshallah, maybe something bigger can happen. So let's just all pose with our books if you have them, and let's just pose for a final picture here. So I'll just make my full screen and take a screenshot. Yes, there you go. Big smile. Yes, beautiful. Wonderful. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to all of you, all the published writers now, and hopefully the best-selling authors very soon. I'm sure this book will do very, very well. And thanks to Apurva for taking out time and being here with us. It was really, really motivating. And thank you, all of you, and all the best for this book.
Thanks a lot, Aruna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you also for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ekta, just want to again thank. It was my first time writing my real incident. And through this forum, I expressed gratitude to the angel whom I met and who turned around my life completely. So deep gratitude to the entire team for creating this initiative through which I could express my gratitude to my angel.
Yes, Teji's story is really, really fascinating. She's
I just checked.
I
just checked today. There were 2 more comments that came in from 2 of my teams.
Okay.
So, I mean, I stopped reading the comments after December, but I saw that there are still comments. So wherever it is reaching, it is still inspiring many.
It just went viral, She wrote about a 1 rupee coin that changed her life, and her career started off from there. Very interesting. Now look at her. I mean, she's such a senior position now, and this was the beginning. So thank you so much for sharing that and for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ekta. Thank you, everybody. And really happy. I'm already ordered the book on Amazon to read each one of the stories from the wonderful women.
Super.
So you're all winners here.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.